Despite the massive price difference, these two wireless mice are surprisingly similar. I'm Techify, and this is my review between the Logitech GPX Superlight and HyperX Pulsefire Haste wireless. So guys, let's get into this. If you enjoy this video, then hit subscribe and join the Techify Discord, and let me know if there's any comparisons you'd like to see next. So when I say there's a big price difference, I do mean it. Right now, the GPX is $110 on Amazon, and that's on sale, and the Pulsefire Haste wireless is $65. I paid just £50 for this in the UK on a sale on HyperX's website. Dimensions wise, they're actually very similar, which surprised me when I looked them up and measured them, as they do feel quite different, and I think that is down to the slightly wider grip width on the HyperX Pulsefire Haste. Neither of these mice are tiny, but they're not absolutely huge either. I think they're both designed to be kind of an all size fits all, and I'd say that is the case. If you're a palm user, then these are both going to be fine, you're going to get comfy with them, but you may be better with an ergonomic mouse, so go look at something like the Pulsar X Lite V2. If you're a claw user like myself, my hands are about 17cm by 8.5cm, and I can claw both of these mice pretty comfortably. I do really like these side grips on the Haste wireless, however, its wider width means I think the GPX is a slightly better shape for me. Similarly, if you're a fingertip user, I think you'll be okay with both these mice. Once again, they're not tiny. A lot of people like a really small mouse or fingertip, which these are obviously not. They're pretty much identical in terms of weight at about 62 grams, and the build quality on them both is absolutely solid, which is really impressive. The obvious difference though is the honeycomb hole design on the Haste wireless. They've done pretty well because you have solid sides, and especially with these grips, you don't really notice the holes too much, so I think that is a nice middle ground. However, the GPX feels a lot nicer and in some ways feels like a more premium mouse. Point for the Pulsefire Haste wireless though is it charges with USB Type-C instead of micro USB. Everything uses USB Type-C now, and it generally tends to last longer, so I think Logitech should have included it. Battery life is good on both these mice. I don't find myself charging them more than I find reasonable, which is good. Sensor wise, these sensors are both pretty good. You get Logitech's Hero sensor in the GPX and the PAW3335 in the Pulsefire Haste wireless. The GPX has a slightly lower lift-off distance of 3 playing cards versus 5 with the Haste. However, in-game these both perform really well, and personally I can't distinguish them. Although I don't really have any evidence to prove it, I have slightly more faith in Logitech's Lightspeed wireless technology than I do in what HyperX is using. However, in-game, especially with the Haste, if you're using the extender and then have the dongle plugged in on your desk, the connection is really good and I didn't have any issues. Both of these allow you to store the dongle in the bottom. I didn't mention this in my review, but this is something I really like about the Haste. This is really convenient, especially for me because I don't use the mice all the time. I have found it again now, but I did once lose the GPX one. That is my fault though, as there is storage space for it in the bottom. For the feet, I now have the glass super glides on the GPX. You can go check out my review of these. However, the feet on both are pretty good. They are a bit better though, in my opinion, on the GPX with a nice big surface area, and they're slightly better feet in general. That being said, at this low weight, the ones on the Pulsefire Haste are perfectly good enough. They both feel really smooth and really consistent and are a pleasure to use. The clicks in both mice feel pretty good. They do feel different as you get on ones in the Logitech and TTC Golds in the HyperX. They're both pretty good though, and the same applies to the side buttons and scroll wheel. And for the other bits and bobs, obviously you get no RGB, you get a nice simplistic design on the GPX. You do get a tiny bit of RGB on the HyperX Pulsefire Haste wireless, and both these mice are controllable in software. Logitech software is just a bit more developed, and I think is a bit better software in general. But especially if you're like me and you just set the DPI, set your settings once, then the HyperX software is perfectly adequate. So what's the verdict? Well, the GPX and HyperX Pulsefire Haste are very similar despite the big difference in price. The GPX does feel like a more polished mouse, and having no holes and everything is a nice luxury. However, I don't think it's worth the extra money. And with the shape being similar, there's not much to say in terms of which one you should buy based on shape. They're going to be pretty good for everybody. If you've got quite small hands, then look at something smaller, and if you're a palm user, then maybe look at an ergonomic wireless mouse such as the Pulsar X Lite V2. Hopefully you found this video helpful. You can check out the individual reviews of these two mice for more information. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.